we got behind off track all day, and it's going to be a recipe for pretty bad offensive football. So we got to get back to work, and I believe in our guys, and we will. But credit to Detroit. They kept us off track all day. Too many negative plays on early downs, and so a lot of third and longs, ugly football.
Inside the Nest, an Atlanta Falcons audio experience. Here is your host, Craig Green.
Touchdown Atlanta.
The Falcons went up north and eventually came up short. Atlanta was stalling, the Lions were balling, to the delight of their hometown support. Welcome inside the Nest. I'm your host, Craig Green. Let's get into it. So you heard at the beginning of the podcast sound from the Atlanta Falcons Radio Network, Dave Archer interviewing head coach Arthur Smith immediately after the game in the tunnel towards the locker room after the Falcons fell 20-6 to the Detroit Lions at Ford Field in the Motor City. So injuries for the Falcons before the game. Troy Anderson, who was in the concussion protocol, who cleared protocol and was able to play today. Jeff Okudah, who was nursing a lower body injury, foot ankle injury, practiced all week, was listed as questionable, ended up suiting up today for the Falcons and playing in today's game. Okudah did not record a tackle in today's game, although he did see game action. Cordero Patterson, still recovering from that soft tissue injury in his thigh, was listed as inactive for today's game, came in as questionable on Friday's injury report, but Coach Arthur Smith decided to throw caution to the wind and keep CP84 out for a third consecutive week. So we'll recap the stats of this game. I mean, it was not a pretty ball game by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're a Lions fan, of course, you're going to take it any way you can get it. The Lions moved to 2-1. The Falcons dropped to 2-1 after winning their first two games at home. They lost their first game on the road this season. The Lions are 1-1 at home now after winning their first game on the road against the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in somewhat of an upset. But last week, of course, the Lions lost at home to the Seattle Seahawks. Stats from this game: first downs, 18-16 Detroit. Total plays fairly even, 65-64 Atlanta. Total yards, 358 to 183 Detroit. Both teams had 12 drives down the field. Yards per play, total domination by the Lions, 5.6 to 2.8. Passing yards, 243 for the Lions, 139 for the Falcons. The only interception thrown on the day was Jared Goff getting picked off by Jesse Bates. Yards per pass, 7.4 to 3.1 for Detroit. No sacks on the day. 7 sacks for the offensive line of the Falcons, giving up 62 yards. Rushing 115 to 44 Detroit. In the red zone, not pretty on either side, but 1 for 4 for the Lions, 0 for 1 for the Falcons. Just once in the red zone all day long. Penalties, Atlanta won that. That was pretty much the only statistic that they won today. They only committed 4 penalties for a grand total of 24 yards compared to that of 10 penalties for 119 yards for Detroit. The Falcons just could not take advantage of those Lions penalties. And possession time, fairly even, you would say, 32-57 to 27-03 in favor of the Lions. Both teams had 1 turnover. Desmond Ridder was sacked and fumbled the ball on the Falcons' final possession. But Jared Goff was picked off in the third quarter by Jesse Bates. Desmond Ridder, 21 of 38, 201 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Again, sacked 7 times and had a quarterback rating of 70.2. Bijan Robinson, the leading rusher for the Falcons today, 10 carries for just 33 yards, had a long run of 11 yards. Tyler Algier, largely ineffective, 7 carries for just 12 yards, only 1.7 yards per carry. Leading receiver today for the Falcons in terms of receptions, Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith, the tight ends. Pitts, 41 yards, and Jonnu Smith, 37 yards. Bijan Robinson, 4 catches for 27. Drake London, 2 for 31. Tyler Algier, 2 for 17. Matt Collins had a 23-yard reception. Kadaro Hodge had a 15-yard reception. And Michael Pruitt had a 10-yard reception. That was pretty much it. Defensively, again, Jesse Bates III, 11 tackles, 6 solo, 1 pass deflection, and the interception. Caden Ellis, 10 tackles, 5 solos, 1 tackle for loss. So now that we looked at that, let's take a look at the good from this game. What was the good that the Falcons did? I'll tell you what, not a lot. I mean, Jesse Bates got his 3rd interception of the season and gave the Falcons a chance to take advantage of a short field, but the Falcons went 4 and out on the next drive, opting to go for it instead of trying a 54-yard field goal with Younghoe Koo. The Falcons did a nice job in the 3rd quarter to keep the Lions from extending the lead, getting off the field on the first defensive series, but unfortunately, it was followed up by a missed field goal by Younghoe Koo. Defensively, the Falcons were 10 for 14 on 3rd down, but the Lions were too efficient in earlier downs for it to really make a difference in today's game. The bad in this game, well, it was a lot. Pass protection, let's start there. Desmond Ridder was sacked 7 times and hit 8 other times. The Lions pretty much owned the line of scrimmage today. Now you look at Jared Goff, he was not sacked whatsoever. He was hit 9 times but did not get sacked. The Lions did a good job of keeping Goff fairly clean and allowing him to look downfield and to make the throws he needed to make. First down efficiency was also a problem. Repeatedly, you saw the Falcons with negative plays on their first play of every series. Either it went backwards or they gained very little yards. The Falcons also 4 for 14 on 3rd down offensively. Atlanta only mustered 2.8 yards per play. The offense as a whole could not get anything going whatsoever. I mean, just 44 yards rushing on the day. The pass rush itself was ineffective compared to Detroit. Jared Goff, again, not sacked at all. You know, Desmond Ridder hit the dirt 7 times, losing 62 yards on those sacks. Another bad spot for the Falcons today. Safety Brian Branch of Detroit did whatever he wanted to do today. I mean, he was constantly in the box, aiding the Detroit run defense, and was able to manage a pair of deflected passes. So he had 11 tackles on the day, 3 tackles for loss, and two pass breakups. On some of those sacks as well, Desmond Ridder today, I mean, he appeared to hold the ball a little too long at times. I think everyone is going to share the blame for the offensive woes today, but you could see that the Falcons were totally out of sync today offensively. You got to give the Lions credit for owning the line of scrimmage and making things difficult for Arthur Smith's team today. And I hate to say that I was right about the Falcons losing this game on my schedule prediction show back in May, but I just felt this one coming because Detroit themselves is in the middle of an upward ascension. All right, so let's call it good here. Going to give you a little rapid reaction to the Falcons' loss in Detroit. We're going to call it good for today and want to thank you for joining us on this Atlanta Falcons audio experience. So thanks again for tuning in and checking out our podcast. I'd like to invite you to follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, Snapchat, YouTube, and Threads at Craig G Sports. Please like, share, and subscribe this podcast and share with any Falcons fans you know. Our next episode will come after the Jacksonville Jaguars game in London next week. So it appears that both teams will be entering that London game with a loss, as the Jaguars fell at home. I mean, they got crushed today by the Houston Texans and rookie C.J. Stroud 37-17. So, you know, the Falcons are going to look at that tape and try to figure out the best way to attack Jacksonville and to get their proverbial face back across the pond in England. So, until the next Atlanta Falcons audio experience, this is your guy CG saying sayonara and buenos noches.